listeners. Welcome to Plano's Political Pitbull. I am Esther.
And I am Ruth.
And we have the final results for the 2024 presidential election. President Trump has won re-election with 312 Electoral College votes and over 70 million votes.
74 million.
74 million votes to Kamala Harris's 71 million votes.
These votes are not finalized, by the way, because they're still technically counting.
No, this was, I think this was the final number.
Because no, as far as I can tell, last time I checked, which was earlier today, many counties are still not 100%, but the results aren't 100% in.
Oh, yes, they still have the provisional ballots and obviously maybe the military ballots.
Yeah, they just called it because there was no way
the results are going to change.
Yeah.
So those that 74 million number and 71 million number may go up. Now, it was basically a massive red wave. Some call it a tsunami. And if you look at the results on a county level, and you can go to your favorite search engine and just try to get an image of the results by county, you can see just how big the win was. The map is mostly red with a few blue spaces here and there.
Yeah, interestingly, it's redder than it was it's obviously redder than it was in 2020, but it's redder than it was in 2016.
Yes, it is. We had counties flip from blue to red that hadn't been red in over 100 years. Here in Texas has gotten redder in the presidential election, at least. Starr County way down in South Texas by the border has flipped from blue to red, and a whole bunch of counties in between. The middle of the United States.
It's especially interesting to see California and how it's changed from 2016 to now.
California was a lot more bluer by county. Obviously, when you get into the more coastal areas, it's more blue. But where you have the more middle and western part of the state, it's more red. Miami-Dade is another county that flipped. I think it hasn't been, can't even remember the last time it went red, but that flipped as well. Now, interestingly, there are some states that do not have an ounce of red in them. Massachusetts is one. There isn't a red dot in all of Massachusetts. But conversely, in Oklahoma, there isn't a single blue dot.
And that seems to be consistent with recent years.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. West Virginia, which obviously they had a Senate win. There is not a blue dot in West Virginia. So it's interesting to see just the amount of blue versus red there is. And also it's interesting to see it by county, I find. Moving on to the federal Senate. In the Senate, the Republicans have gained control, 53 to 46. And it looks like we are still waiting on one race in Arizona. And there is just a almost less than a point difference between them. So I think that when they do finally call it, I feel like if it's not going to be a large difference, there may go to a recount. Depends on the rules. It depends if the candidate wants it. But we're still waiting on that. That is really, really close. The House, the Congress, is still waiting for some results. Right now, the House stands at 213 GOP to 203 Democrat. And it looks like so far these races are very close, but
incredibly close.
Yeah, but it looks like the GOP is probably going to hold the House of Representatives. And, we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, because several of the races that are still in play are extremely, extremely close. Like, there's one that's literally 49 to 49.
Percentage-wise?
Yeah.
Ooh. What are they doing? I wonder what they do in the case of a tie. You could theoretically have a tie.
Like, one race was like 100,000, or it was like, I might be remembering wrong, but it was like 100,000 votes, or even less than that, apart.
Well,
that's why they're not calling them.
Yeah, I don't.
They're so incredibly close that you can't tell. And
it's going to depend on which counties you're waiting for. If you're waiting for the bigger counties, that could end up switching things compared to a smaller county. So we'll wait and see on that. Hopefully we will have an answer by next week. I don't know how they're counting these things by, hand. One for you, one for you. It's taking forever. All right. So in Texas, for us, Texas got redder. Texas picked up a seat in the Senate for the GOP. So their lead, or their majority, grew. And we also, they also picked up some seats in the House, it looks like. This is the state House and state Senate for Texas. Now that the 2024 election is almost over, pretty much over for Texas, we can start to think about the really important election coming up in 2025. That would be the local elections.
You mean state, right?
Nope, local.
Oh.
State's done. We had our state, basically House and state legislature this go around. In 2026, we'll have the governor. That's when those.
Oh, yeah.
Will happen.
We have our elections on the even years, and they meet on the odd years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just got it flipped around in my head.
So no, these are strictly local elections that's coming up in 2025. And in most cities in Texas, they will be having their local elections. For us, we will be having city council, mayoral, school board, our county college board elections. For Plano, we have 4 seats that are up. Place 2, place 4, place 6, which is the mayor's seat, and place 8. 3 of them, all those folks have termed out. The only one up for re-election is the mayor. The people that will be voted in those elections, wherever you are in your local elections, they will have more power over your lives than any congressman, federal senator, and yes, even the president of the United States. Yet barely anyone gets as worked up over those elections.
Nobody even gets as worked up for the Senate and House as they do for the president, even though they also have more power than the president.
Yeah. Article 2 of the Constitution lists the presidential powers. And the president doesn't have a lot of power, believe it or not.
Even though we act like they do.
Exactly. They have over the years gotten involved in things that they shouldn't have. The president has, just to name a couple of the powers that he has, it's commander-in-chief, but they cannot declare war. Only Congress can declare war. So all the wars that we have had, well, they're technically, you can't call them a war.
They're conflicts.
Yeah. Which, a rose by any other name is still a rose, but nevertheless, not a war, because the war wasn't declared. Some other notable powers of the president is to nominate judges to the federal bench. Now, I said nominate, not appoint, because the appointment actually comes from the Senate. President nominates, and the senators, they appoint and vote on the judges.
I found it interesting that he also can't appoint cabinet members.
Right. He cannot. The Senate must advise and consent. They have to actually vote those people into their position. The other thing he can do is give out pardons, and he can negotiate treaties. Now, he can't actually sign the treaty. That is the power, again, of the Senate, and it's got to be 2/3. So those are just a few of the powers. Interestingly, and obviously he signs bills. Puts a signature on the bill, he's the final say. But even if he doesn't put a signature on the bill, if he vetoes the bill, guess what? Congress can override that.
Even though it's
a pretty high threshold.
Unlikely that it would get, but the veto would get overturned. It's still possible.
It's happened before. So it could happen again, yes. In the makeup of our government, the powerful entity is Congress. They make the laws. The House has control of the purse strings. They're the ones with the more power, but on the federal level. But for some reason, when it comes to a presidential election, a lot of people are more focused on that election and get more emotionally invested in that election. I've seen videos of people crying for joy that President Trump won, and then I've seen other videos where people are crying and sobbing in agony because he won.
And then we also had the whole January 6th thing in 2020.
Well, I must say,
people get very worked up.
They do get worked up. Which 2020 was slightly different because people actually thought that their vote was stolen from them. So they get worked up because they feel like there was some kind of fraud there. Whether you think there was fraud or not, that's what they believed. And I think that's how you had the January 6th. If they felt that the election was valid, that there wasn't any kind of funny business going on, I don't think January 6th at the Capitol 2021 would have happened. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Nevertheless, at the end of the day, what people should really be getting focused on
and worked up about
is their local elections. How many people know who their mayor is? If you go, have you ever seen these, Ruth, have you ever seen these videos where man on the street, they call them man on the street videos or woman on the street videos, where they go up to people and they ask them questions. And they'll ask them, who's the president of the United States? Most people will know who the president of the United States is. Mm-hmm. I have yet to come across one video where somebody got that answer wrong. Most people will know who the vice president is. Some people maybe not. But the majority will know who the vice president. Ask them who their governor is. Ask them who their state senator is, who their mayor is. They have no clue.
And it's so interesting, too, because your governor, your state senator, your state legislature or representative, they're going to affect your lives so much more, your mayor, they're going to affect your lives so much more than anything going on in the federal.
Yes, especially if they actually adhere to the Constitution, the federal.
Like, look at the difference between California, New York, and Texas. They're completely different.
Yeah.
But we're all living under the same country.
Exactly. I believe it was Reagan who said that if a person doesn't like what's going on in their state, they can vote with their feet and move out of their state and go somewhere else and go to another state. That's been happening. New Jersey, New York, California, people are moving out of those states and they
going to North Carolina, Florida, Texas. The list goes on.
Yeah. So those folks have been voting with their feet. But we all live under the same Constitution. But our states could not be any more different. And I'm not talking about weather or topography. All right? You have California that has very high taxes.
Gas is like $7.
It has a state tax. All right? So you have to pay not only your income tax to federal government, but there's also an income tax that goes to the state. Texas has no state income tax. You've got all different types of ways to deal with crime. The sentencing is different. Sometimes they may not even charge you in California for certain crimes.
Well, now they're going to change that actually with Rule 36?
Yeah, Prop 36.
Californians voted yes on that, so that's going to change.
That might, yes, they'll actually may start charging shoplifters again. So your local governments have unlimited amount of effect and power on your lives. Your mayor and your city council, I would dare say, have more power than your governors. You go through a stoplight, that is local government.
Well, it's because
riding on a road is local government.
It's because the closer your government is to your local town, to where you are, the more power they have over your lives because it's localized, you know? They expect more people to care. The way the system was made is they expected more people to care about what was going on in their own cities.
Yes. And it's also easier, and was always easier, for you to get to your local representative. Your local representative is supposed to live in your town. He's not off in Washington, D.C. or your state capital. You don't have to drive or fly thousands of miles to get a meeting with them.
They could literally be your neighbor.
Exactly. You can walk to their house. In maybe your case.
Yeah, and have a chat with them.
Exactly. So you should care more about who your mayor is. And I have to admit, I fell into this, I don't want to call it a trap, but
I think that's a good word.
Well, it's not really a trap, but I guess it's a habit of knowing who my federal senator was, my president was. I would even know who the governor was. But if you asked me who my mayor was, I didn't know. If you asked me who my state senator was, I didn't know. It wasn't until I moved to Texas and moved to Plano that I realized that I started to get involved and know these things and follow these things.
So what made that switch? Like, why was it moving to Plano specifically that you started paying attention?
So I met some nice ladies and I started talking with them, and I started also noticing some strange things that were happening in the town. Like all of a sudden, every other day, there'd be a new construction pop up. Oh, well, that building wasn't there before, and that building wasn't there before, and they're starting construction over there. Gee, I wonder what that's going to be.
I wonder why.
Yeah, and they were all apartments. And I'm like, gee, that's a lot of apartments. And then I started noticing these signs. Bicycle Route 13. Bicycle road or route. I can't remember now what the sign says. But there'd be these signs on each road. It was like, why are there signs here saying bicycle route with a number? And I started to ask questions. And I started to get involved and watch the local government.
And you realized, that's why this is happening, because they're making those decisions.
Exactly. And I started to realize, gee, they've got a lot of power here that I never knew about. So you too can watch your local government. Every local government should have a website. All right? If they don't, then there might be a bigger problem there. But every single town, city should have their own website. And you can go on there and you should be able to see who your mayor is and who your city council is. Sometimes they call them aldermen. They might have different names depending on where you are. And you should be able to watch their meetings. There should be a list of when their meetings are. You should be able to pull up the agenda. You should be able to watch those meetings either online, or a lot of towns will have a local television station and they'll show those meetings. For us, I believe it's channel 16 here. So.
Oh, and I also just thought of your school board. That directly affects your child's education.
Oh, yes.
And what they're learning in school and how they're going to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
So who you elect to be on that school board is very important.
Yes, extremely important. They're the ones that are approving the books. They're the ones approving the curriculum. They're the ones deciding what your taxes are going to be. So, yes, this is very important to follow them. Now, we don't do school board here. We can only do so much here. We can't watch everything, so if somebody is out there who wants to start a podcast or a website just talking about the local school boards, go for it. We will welcome you with open arms. We can only do so much between the zoning cases and the zoning board and the city council and our state government. My kids are grown. I don't have kids in school anymore. So I am deferring that to somebody else. We all have to know our limit.
I don't have kids yet.
Yeah. So we've reached our limit here. We have county colleges, and the county colleges are run by elected boards. So get to know who's on your county college board. Because if you have a county college, and they take your taxes, guess what? They're deciding where your tax dollars are going. Again, I do not follow that as closely either. I don't have children that go to school there. So
it's not a first priority.
You can't watch everything. You just can't. But if you're a parent of a child who's in a school, watch your school board. Maybe mom watches city council, dad watches school board, and you exchange notes. Okay?
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. And also, there should be what we call forums or debates going on next year for your mayors and your city council members and your school board. And ask them questions. Come up with questions that you want to know. My first question would be, how are you feeling about corporate welfare? Do you believe in corporate fascism? No. And if they say, well, no, I don't believe in fascism at all. I think fascism is terrible. You say, oh, so then, well, that's great to hear that you're against economic development and giving money to corporations. And then they say, wait a minute, I said I was against corporate welfare and fascism. And you can tell them, guess what? They're the same thing.
I would ask, do you know what the word fascism means? Because a lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't. They don't know the difference between fascism and socialism and communism and capitalism, actually. They don't know the difference between those things. I would definitely, me personally, I would want to know on economics, because social, cultural things, your city council can't really control. They can't make laws on abortion. That's at the governor and the legislatures of your state. They can't make laws on who is able to get married, at what age you're able to get married. They don't make rules on a lot of different things that go on. Those are mostly your governors and your state reps.
What about, like, police?
Well,
that's local, right?
That police is local. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, what are the, well, okay, so it depends on the crime. So speeding tickets, definitely local. But if you move up to assault, now you're talking your county district attorney. So depends on the crime. All right.
So that one's a bit iffy.
Yes, depends on the crime. But perhaps asking them, are you in favor of defunding the police? That was a big thing that was going on a while back. That may be something you are interested in. Asking what their viewpoint of that is. But definitely hone in on those economic issues. Ask them, what do you think local government is for? What are local government's responsibility? I mean, right off the top of my head, I would say public safety. So your police, your fire, your EMS, okay? If they say, well, I think we should give more to the arts, that would be a red flag to me.
Think about what's most important to you for your city, and ask questions based on that to your candidates, and see if they line up.
Yes.
Does this candidate represent what I'm concerned about in my city?
Definitely. But be careful how you word the question. Really think about how you word those questions, because depending on how you word those questions may depend on whether or not they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. Okay? Let them just ask a question so that it's open-ended, so that they can tell you as much information as you can possibly get, and not just tell you what they think you want to hear. Like, you could ask them, how do you feel about so-and-so and such and such? Not, do you think we should give to artists? Ask a very open-ended question. Ask open-ended questions.
Yeah, because that one's a very no or yes. There's not much. They could elaborate, but
oh, well, politicians rarely say yes or no. Okay, no, I mean, rarely. I mean, it's hard to get a yes or no question.
But it's a very hard line answer. It's not as open-ended as their own personal feelings about a subject.
Yes, and I would definitely see how much they know about economics, markets. Are they a free market person? Are they a not free market person? Do they? So definitely think about that, and you can find forums pretty much anywhere. I mean, go and search on the internet, try to find debates, try to see where they're going to be. Definitely go and see if you can meet them. I know for Collin County, we have so many clubs here, so many political organizations, and now will be the time when people start to go to those clubs, and they'll start saying, hello, I'm so-and-so, and I am running for mayor, or I'm running for city council, I'm running for school board. And start asking them. They'll give you their elevator. They should be able to give you their elevator speech on why they're running.
We call that an elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch, sure, because it's about 30 seconds long. And the idea is that you have an elevator ride to tell this person as much as you possibly can about why you're running. But the most important thing I would say is learn about these folks. Learn about your local people, because I guarantee you will if you just look around at them, you will see how much power they actually wield over your city. Here in Texas, they have to make a comprehensive plan. They have to say what we're going to look like in X number of years. That's very important to know too. I never realized that we had that either until they wanted to change it or update it. That can be a big thorn of contention. And at this point, I would definitely, if I was going to move somewhere, I would be looking at the comp plan. Now, not every city's going to have one of those, depending on what state you live in. We will have more on that. We will probably be hearing who is running. I've heard a couple of people mentioned who would be good for Plano. Don't know if they're actually running. Nothing's been announced yet, but when they are, we'll let you know. You guys will be the first to know, and gals. So that is going to be a wrap for us today. If you've enjoyed listening to this program, please like, share, and subscribe to our program. This is Esther.
And this is Ruth.
For Plano's Political Pitbull, signing off.